She won't make it past 20, mark my words. That's what my uncle mutters, his voice half buried in the clatter of forks and the crinkle of plastic tablecloth. He doesn't think I hear it. He thinks I'm too busy scraping frosting off my slice of cake, too caught up in pretending to celebrate my 16th birthday in the dim basement room they've long since stopped calling mine. But I hear it. Just like I heard my aunt 2 nights ago telling my mother that keeping me around was like keeping a broken clock. You know it's useless, but you're too sentimental to toss it out. I'm not crying. Not tonight. Not anymore. My name is Elise. I'm 16 in this memory, though I'm older now. Older, heavier in spirit, and carved out of sharper truths. Have you ever sat quietly in a room full of family and felt more invisible than a ghost? Like if you vanished, the only thing they'd grieve is the extra plate. If that feels familiar, if you've ever been called too much or too little, too quiet, too emotional, too angry, too broken to love, then before we begin, take a second to subscribe to this channel, like the video, share your story in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Now, let's listen to my story journey. The basement room smells like damp laundry and stale birthday balloons, the kind of room where a family stores what they don't want to deal with. That year, I was the thing they didn't want to deal with. The cake was store-bought. I recognized it from the discount shelf at the supermarket. Bright blue frosting, uneven lettering. Happy B-Day, Ellie. Not Elise. They'd stopped calling me by my name the year I got expelled for punching the school counselor. It was a bad punch, not my proudest moment, but she called me a waste of potential, and something in me cracked open. After that, no more parent-teacher meetings, no more second chances. Just whispered conversations behind closed doors and a bedroom that slowly became a storage closet. My older brother Jacob sat across from me that night. He didn't make eye contact. He was already the golden boy, varsity football, full scholarship track, the family savior. He once told me I embarrassed him. I'd tried to run away once when I was 13, but he found me at the train station and dragged me home. Not because he cared, because he didn't want the attention on me. I made a wish that night before blowing out the candles. I wished they'd see me. Not the broken parts, not the burden, just me. Nothing changed. I started sleeping at friends' houses more often. People with couches, air mattresses, cramped living rooms where no one asked too many questions. I worked at a corner store under the table, cash in hand, no records. I bought my own notebooks, kept a log of everything, what I spent, what I ate, what I dreamed. At 17, I showed up at the Army recruitment office wearing an oversized hoodie and the same jeans I wore every day. Sergeant Rivera took one look at me and said, "You trying to run from something or run toward something?" I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "Both." The paperwork wasn't hard. Getting through high school GED in time was. But I did it. Quietly. Alone. No one in my family knew until I came home one night with a buzz cut and a ship-out date. My mom cried when she saw me. Not because she was proud, but because I ruined the family photo wall. "Why can't you just be normal?" she hissed. "Because normal in this house means disappearing," I said. I left the next morning without saying goodbye. The bus smelled like new vinyl and old fear. A few of us tried to joke about it. Some kid named Travis asked if I was scared. I lied. Said I'd been through worse. But really, all I had was the weight of silence, the echo of my uncle's voice. "She won't make it past 20. I let it ring in my head as a dare, a curse, a promise. Let's see if I can break it. I didn't cry at basic training, not when they shaved our heads. Not when they screamed at us in the freezing rain. Not when I twisted my ankle so bad I couldn't walk straight for 2 days. I'd learned to hurt quietly a long time ago. I knew how to swallow pain without flinching. What they didn't expect was how hard I could push. I wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but I didn't break. I didn't quit. The drill sergeant called me Stone Girl, said I had the eyes of someone who'd already seen war, even though I hadn't been near one yet. One night, I stood in the mirror of the barracks bathroom and looked at myself. My body lean, my shoulders squared, my face sharper than I remembered. I saw a woman taking form, not the forgotten girl from the basement. I whispered to my reflection, "You are not a burden. You are a weapon." And the thing about weapons? They don't beg for permission to exist. They train, they serve, and sometimes they save. But no matter how far I ran, a part of me still waited for them to notice. Still checked the mailbox hoping for a letter. Still scanned Facebook hoping for a post, a photo, a sliver of acknowledgement. It never came. I graduated. I was deployed. The heat of the Middle East hit me like a furnace. Sand found its way into everything: boots, sheets, your soul. We bunked with 6 to a tent. I wrote letters back home, no one answered. That's when I stopped expecting them to. Instead, I focused on the mission. The soldiers beside me. The desert sun. The ache in my spine. I earned respect slowly, like gathering drops of water in a drought. Not through charm, but through consistency. Through always showing up, always pulling weight, always pushing harder than anyone expected. When Sergeant Delaney went down during an ambush, I was the one who crawled through the dust, dragged him back under cover, and coordinated the retreat. I wasn't supposed to be in charge, but I was, because I was still standing. Later, when the medic asked me why I didn't wait for backup, I just said, because if I didn't move, no one would. That became a pattern. I moved. I acted. I became known. Not for medals, not yet, but for being the one who never froze, the one who didn't let fear win. Still, not one word from home, until the day I came back. Wheelchair. 3 surgeries. Shrapnel lodged too deep to remove. I was 24. Alive. Decorated. Changed. And all they saw was the chair. "You shouldn't have gone," my mother said. "Now we have to take care of you again." Again. As if I was 16. As if nothing in me had changed. I wheeled myself into the guest room and shut the door. The guest room had yellowing wallpaper and smelled faintly of mothballs and menthol rub. There were still porcelain dolls lined up on the high shelf from when my cousin used to live here. It wasn't made for someone like me, a combat vet with 2 steel rods in her back and a scar running from hip to knee like a warning sign. They didn't know what to do with me. Not my mother, who winced every time she heard the squeak of my wheels on the hallway floor. Not my father, who avoided looking at me unless he was checking the weather. And definitely not Jacob, who'd now become a junior partner at a law firm and hadn't even come to the airport when I returned. I lived in that room for 6 months. They told the neighbors I was recovering from surgery, like I was some fragile thing that needed whispering around. They never mentioned the combat zone, the people I lost, the medal recommendation. To them, I was broken again, a burden again. And the worst part? I started to believe them. It's one thing to survive a war. It's another thing to survive coming home to a place that never wanted you back. At night, I'd lie in that narrow twin bed and stare at the ceiling fan spin, counting how long it took before the dizziness started. Some days, my body ached so bad I couldn't tell if it was physical or something deeper. I tried going to therapy at the VA, twice. The first counselor asked me about family support, and I nearly laughed in her face. I applied for work, but who hires a woman in a wheelchair who flinches at sudden loud sounds? One afternoon, I heard Jacob in the kitchen talking to our mom. "She needs to get into some kind of facility, Mom. We're not equipped for this." This was me. I didn't say a word. I just backed into the room, closed the door, and ordered a set of resistance bands online. If they weren't going to see me as a person, I'd rebuild myself until they couldn't look away. I trained like I did in boot camp. Quietly, methodically, 1 inch at a time, push-ups against the wall, band pulls until my arms trembled. Breathing exercises when the flashbacks came like barbed wire thoughts. And on the 7th month, I got up, unassisted. Just once. Just long enough to reach the window, open it, and let the sunlight hit my face like a medal I earned myself. I enrolled in a virtual university course for veterans, public leadership, and crisis response. I started posting online, anonymous at first. Stories, observations, battle tactics, and healing practices. And they started spreading. One day, a young soldier messaged me. "I read what you wrote about trauma triggers." I showed it to my captain. They made it part of our protocol. Thank you. Me, in that yellow room, making something matter. I found purpose again, not in their approval, but in connection. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Because the war wasn't over. I got a call from my former commanding officer one morning. His voice crackled with urgency. "You're being considered for a medal. Not just any medal. The kind they pin on your chest in front of cameras. We need your permission." I said nothing for a long time. Then I said, "Let them see what a burden looks like when she stands." 2 weeks later, I was flown to DC business class, black SUV, full honors. They put me up in a room with high windows and starched white sheets. The morning of the ceremony, a young soldier, barely 20, helped me into my uniform. It took everything in me not to cry when I saw myself in the mirror. The scars, the creases, the story etched into every inch of fabric. But I didn't cry, because I hadn't come this far to fall apart now. As we drove to the Capitol, I asked the driver if there was live stream coverage. "Yes, ma'am, national networks. Your whole town's probably watching." I smiled. Good. My family hadn't called, not once, but I knew they'd watch. They always watched when it mattered, when it wasn't personal. The crowd at the ceremony was a sea of military brass and polished shoes, the kind of place where every movement carries weight. I sat waiting, my name on the program. Second to last, the place reserved for something special. When the announcer called me up, a ripple moved through the crowd. I wheeled forward. Aides helped me stand, slowly, carefully, but fully upright. The general, 4 stars, stiff back, and eyes like tempered steel, walked toward me. He didn't just salute, he knelt. One knee to the stage floor, head bowed. And then, in front of the nation, he pinned the medal to my chest and said, "America thanks you. I thank you. And your story will outlast all of us." The silence afterward was louder than applause. Back home, I imagined my family sitting in the living room, stunned. Not just because I stood, but because someone of power had finally asked, "Who is she?" The answer hung in the air. Not a burden, not a mistake, not a girl in a basement room. A soldier, a savior, a survivor. Elise. The applause is still echoing in my ears when I step off that stage and back into the hallway, where the air feels thicker and my legs tremble with something I won't name. I don't want pity. I don't want fanfare. I just want to breathe again, freely, without the weight of proving I deserve to exist. Back in the hotel room, I collapse onto the edge of the bed, still in full dress uniform. The medal's ribbon is rough against my skin, but I let it stay. It's real. It's mine. It's not their approval, but it's something better. Recognition without compromise. I open my phone. It's buzzing like a wasp nest. Text from a high school friend I haven't spoken to in years. "Elise? On TV? Damn, you really did it." A message from the VA therapist. Saw you today. Proud doesn't cover it. Even one from Travis, the same kid from the boot camp bus. I told them day one you were steel. You proved it. But none from my mother. None from Jacob. No missed calls. No message saying we saw you. No message saying we're sorry. Still, I feel something uncoil in me. Some tight, ugly knot loosens. Not because I'm healed, but because for the first time, I don't need them to see me for me to feel seen. The next morning, my phone rings. A blocked number. I almost don't pick up. Elise Morgan? Yes. This is the Office of the Surgeon General. We're compiling a military leadership curriculum and would like to include your crisis fieldwork in our core case studies. I blink. You want to use my story? Not just use it, teach it. From you. I lean back against the cold headboard. The steel rods in my spine ache, but I smile anyway. I'd be honored. The next few weeks are a blur. Interviews, meetings, podcasts, veterans groups. Somehow, I've become something I never imagined. A voice. Not just for survivors, but for overlooked soldiers, for women, for kids who came from basements and beat the odds. Still, I carry my silence with me like a second uniform. Until one day, the call comes. It's Jacob. I recognize the number and nearly let it go to voicemail. But something in me, maybe cruelty, maybe closure, answers. He's quiet at first. Then, we saw you on TV. I wait. Let him sit in the discomfort. Mom's been off since. She didn't think, well, none of us thought. He trails off. I stay silent. Finally, he says it. You looked strong. It's not an apology, but it's a crack in the wall. What do you want, Jacob? He exhales. We're having dinner, just us. Sunday. Mom wants you there. I almost laugh. Is she hoping to get a picture with the medal? He doesn't answer. I can almost hear his shame travel through the line. Will you come? He asks. Quiet, uncertain. I pause. I think of that basement room, of the whispered curses, of the way their voices made me fold in on myself like bad origami. But I'm not 16 anymore. I'm steel. I'm scars. I'm spine. And I say, yes, not for them, for me. To walk into that house and feel nothing. To sit at that table and not shrink. To let them see what survival looks like when it wears heels and a pressed uniform and doesn't flinch at silence. Sunday arrives. I choose a navy blue blazer, a clean white shirt, black slacks. Not the uniform. Just me. The me I became. The ride to their house is quiet. I drive myself. No aids, no fanfare. Just 4 wheels, 2 hands, and the knowledge that I could turn back at any time and never look back. But I don't. I park in the same cracked driveway where I used to play chalk games as a kid, before the words, too much, became my name. I ring the bell. My father opens the door. He looks older, smaller. For a second, he stares at me like I'm someone famous. Then he steps aside, doesn't say a word. In the dining room, my mother is arranging plates. Her hands tremble just slightly. She looks up, her lips part. And for once, no judgment comes out, no correction, no sigh. Elise, she says, like a name she forgot how to hold. You look lovely. I nod. I don't say thank you. The table is set for 4. Jacob is already seated, pouring water. He stands as I enter, then awkwardly sits back down. It's stiff, formal, like we're strangers at a business meeting. I take my seat. There's roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, a bottle of cheap red wine that used to be reserved for holidays. My father clears his throat. We, saw the medal. I nod. He fumbles. The general, Knelt. He did. It was something. I sip water. It was earned. My mother dabs her mouth with a napkin. Her eyes are watery. Maybe it's the onions. Maybe it's the guilt. We weren't fair to you, she says suddenly. I don't know if we ever were. I raise an eyebrow. What changed? She looks down at her lap. You did. I don't correct her. I don't say, I always was this. I just let her sit in the honesty. Jacob chimes in. I told my daughter about you. Showed her the ceremony. She wants to be a pilot now. Something shifts. I let myself breathe. I cut into the chicken. Take a bite. Chew slowly. The meal is quiet after that, but not empty. Not suffocating. Just quiet. Like the beginning of something new. And as we clear the plates, I catch my reflection in the hallway mirror. Not a burden. Not a shadow. Just me. Standing. Whole. I don't stay the night. When the dinner plates are washed and the small talk runs dry, I gather my coat and thank them for the meal. My mother walks me to the door, hands twisting in front of her like she wants to say more but doesn't know how. Elise? She says softly. I didn't know you were in pain back then. I tilt my head. You didn't ask. She flinches, just barely. I didn't know how. That part hasn't changed. I watch her swallow the words she wants to offer, too afraid they'll come out wrong. Maybe that's growth. Maybe it's cowardice. I don't know anymore. I just know I don't need an apology that comes 20 years too late and costs her nothing. I'm proud of you, she whispers. And maybe that's the best she can give. Maybe it's enough. Maybe it's not. I don't nod. I don't thank her. I just say, good night, and step out into the cold. Back in the car, I turn the heater on and sit in silence. The metal's in the glove compartment. I don't need it around my neck to feel its weight. That week, I'm invited to speak at a military academy. They want me to talk about leadership under pressure, what it means to carry command when chaos is all around. They think I'll give them tactics. What I give them is truth. I stand at the podium, eyes scanning rows of clean uniforms, bright-eyed recruits with no idea what war does to your bones, your breath, your sleep. I wasn't born a leader, I begin. I was born invisible, ignored, called names I stopped answering to, until I stopped waiting for permission. They're listening. I can feel it. Each breath held in place. The hardest war I ever fought wasn't overseas. It was in my own home. Being seen there, after everything, was harder than the battlefield. But here's what they never tell you. The world doesn't get to define you if you don't hand them the pen. Afterward, cadets line up to shake my hand. Some cry. Some salute. One girl, barely 20, with her hair in a perfect bun, leans in and whispers, "My dad calls me a disgrace." I joined anyway. I press a card into her hand. "Call me anytime." She nods, trembling, eyes wide with a kind of raw hope I recognize too well. Later that month, I'm contacted by a nonprofit, Resilience Forward. They want me on their advisory board. They want my voice on the ground, in the room, at the table. Not as a token, as a strategist. They send a car for me. A black SUV with tinted windows, and a driver who calls me ma'am without irony. At the board meeting, someone asks me, "What kept you going when no one believed in you?" I smile, slow and tired. The disbelief was fuel. The silence was training. If you live in the shadows long enough, you learn how to see what others miss. I don't mention my family. I don't need to. But life's funny like that. A week later, my brother texts, "Hey, Mom's not doing great. She keeps asking for you." I don't respond right away. I sit with it. Let the ache pass like a storm. 2 days later, I drive to the hospital. She's thinner now, paler. Her hair has turned soft gray, curled into tight little spirals against the pillow. She opens her eyes when I walk in, and there's a flicker of something like relief. Or maybe it's regret. "Elise," she rasps. "You came." "I did." "You look strong." "I am." Her lips tremble. I was wrong. I nod. You were. A long silence stretches between us. Her hand inches toward mine. I let it rest there. Her skin is cold, bones sharp under paper-thin flesh. I don't expect forgiveness, she says. Good, I answer. Because this isn't about you. She chuckles. It's breathy, weak. You always had fire. No, I say. I made fire. Because I had to survive in the cold. She closes her eyes. A tear slips out, disappears into the pillowcase. Tell me something good, she whispers. Tell me. You're happy. I pause. I think about the academy, the nonprofit, the medal. I think about the quiet mornings in my new apartment where sunlight filters through the curtains and nobody talks over me. I'm not happy, I say gently. I'm whole. That's better. She smiles. And this time, it reaches her eyes. That night, she slips into a coma. 3 days later, she's gone. The funeral is small, family only. Jacob asks me to speak. I decline. Instead, I stand at the edge of the cemetery, away from the crowd, watching them lower her into the ground. The cold bites through my coat, but I don't move. I say my goodbye without words. Back at home, I open the box she left me. It's old, cedar-lined, smelling faintly of lavender and dust. Inside is a photo of me, boot camp graduation, arms crossed, eyes blazing. On the back, in her careful handwriting, you became what none of us were brave enough to be. I sit with that for a long time, and then I burn it, not out of hate, but because I no longer need their validation, not written, not spoken, not from the grave. I walk into the living room, turn on the news. They're covering the latest Resilience Forward campaign, housing access for veterans. My face flashes on the screen for a moment, and somewhere, in homes like the one I came from, someone asks again, who is she? And this time, I smile. Because the answer isn't for them anymore. It's mine. It's strange how quickly you can move from being invisible to being a symbol. 2 months after my mother's funeral, I'm standing in front of a congressional subcommittee, testifying about mental health support and reintegration programs for female veterans. My dress is sharp, my voice steady, and my spine, part titanium, part trauma, holds me upright like a monument. Behind me, the gallery is packed. I spot the girl from the academy, the one whose father called her a disgrace. She's in uniform, sitting in the back row, eyes locked on me like I'm a lighthouse in a dark sea. I speak for her. For me. For every woman who ever returned home not to applause, but to a locked door and a smaller bed. I was told I was a burden, I tell the panel. But I was never the weight. I was the structure that held everyone up, and no one saw it until they needed it to stand. My words get picked up. They go viral. Some congressman from Ohio tries to quote me and gets it wrong. It doesn't matter. The real version spreads faster. The interviews come again, this time from bigger outlets. National news, women's magazines, veterans forums. A documentary crew reaches out. They want to follow my day-to-day for a feature called The New Soldier. At first, I hesitate. I don't want to be a spectacle. But then I think of all the young women watching, all the Elises still sitting in dark rooms, listening to people call them useless. I say yes. The filming begins. They capture my mornings. Slow, deliberate, with physical therapy woven into coffee routines and schedule planning. They capture me mentoring online, reading messages from young girls overseas who say they finally signed up because someone like me showed them how. The hardest part is when they want to film me visiting home again. Not the basement, not the old house, the cemetery. We arrive early, before sunrise. Mist curls along the grass like memory. The crew hangs back as I walk to the headstone. I crouch. My knees creak. There's a small flag stuck in the dirt. A metal pin rests just under her name. I don't speak aloud. I don't cry. But inside, I whisper, I carried what you couldn't. I broke the curse. That's enough. The documentary ends with a wide shot of me rolling away, hands steady on the wheels. No music, just birds, wind, the sound of motion. When it premieres 6 months later, the response is overwhelming. People write from all over the world, South Korea, Poland, Kenya. They tell me I made them rethink their daughters, their wives, themselves. One man writes, I called my sister a liability. I hadn't spoken to her in 10 years. I just sent her a message to say I was wrong. You helped me do that. Another says, I watched with my teenage daughter. She turned to me and said, I want to be like her. Sometimes I still sit in the dark at night, in my new place, watching the moonlight stretch across the kitchen tiles. I think about who I used to be, the girl in the basement, the whisper in the corner, the punchline to someone else's dinner conversation. I keep a photo of myself now on my desk, not to remember what I did, but who I became in spite of everything. And then, the final call comes. The Pentagon. A private award ceremony, they say. One more medal. Higher. Rarer. Acknowledgement of field command, frontline courage, and resilience under enemy fire. The general who knelt is hosting. Only this time, he won't be pinning it. The president will. I fly to D.C. again, this time with 2 suitcases and a stylist sent by the event coordinator. Wear what makes you feel powerful, she says. Don't dress for them. Dress for you. I choose a dark burgundy suit, no heels, just polished black boots I can stand steady in. The metal ribbon peeks out from the lapel. The hall is packed. Lights, cameras, national eyes. When they announce my name, the applause is thunderous. I rise from my seat, walk to the stage. No cane, no chair. Just the weight of all I've survived balancing me like gravity. And then it happens. The First Lady steps forward, takes my hand, and says into the mic, "This woman raised the nation when we failed her." There's a collective breath held in the room, like they all understand something in that moment. That bravery doesn't always come with bullets. Sometimes it comes with being unwanted and choosing to live anyway. After the ceremony, I'm ushered backstage. My phone is already buzzing. Texts from Jacob. We watched. Dad cried. We don't know how to make it right, but we're trying. I read them. I don't reply. Not yet. Because this moment isn't for them. It's for the girl who blew out candles in a basement, wishing someone would see her. It's for the soldier who dragged bodies out of dust and silence. It's for the woman who looked into the mirror, once broken, and said, "You are not a burden. You are the force." I leave the ceremony with the medal tucked carefully into my inner pocket. Not hidden, but close. Later that night, I lie in my hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, and I whisper, "You made it. You were never the weight. You were the wings." A month later, I get an invitation I wasn't expecting. The National Military Women's Hall of Honor wants to induct me. An annual recognition ceremony. Private, but historic. Only a handful of living veterans are ever chosen. I stare at the letter for a long time before setting it down on my kitchen counter, next to a cooling cup of coffee. The city outside my window is buzzing. Traffic hums, the sun reflects off office towers, and I, somehow, am one of the few who gets to live with both battlefield scars and peace in her bones. Not every soldier comes back whole. Fewer come back to rebuild. Still, the idea of attending the ceremony alone tugs at something inside me. I send Jacob a message. "I'm being inducted next month. National Hall of Honor. You can come, if you want." He responds within the hour. "I'll be there. Just tell me when to show up." No fanfare, no promises, Just a man trying to rebuild something from ashes. I don't reply. I just send him the time and place. The ceremony is quiet. No cameras, no red carpets. Just a grand old hall in Arlington, dim chandeliers, soft music from a military string quartet, and the hush of reverence. The women being honored are legends, names I grew up reading about, trailblazers, ghosts of wars most of the country doesn't remember. My name is last on the program. I don't wear a uniform. I don't need to. Instead, I wear a long black coat, sharp lines, my boots echoing on the stone floor as I approach the podium. My heart is calm, not still, but focused, like a sniper before a breath. They read a list of my service citations, the ambush, the leadership, the decorated service, the advocacy after discharge, the bill I helped pass, the girls I mentored. Then the president of the council says, Elise Morgan reminded this nation that the burden is not in the person, it's in our failure to see their strength. There's a standing ovation. I scan the room, and there, in the third row, stands Jacob. He's clapping, not politely, not performatively, with pride. After the ceremony, he approaches slowly. He looks smaller in person than in memory. You were incredible, he says. I offer a polite smile. Thank you for coming. I wanted to. Mom would have wanted to too. I pause. You weren't always silent. His face shifts. I was scared. You changed, and I didn't know how to be your brother anymore. You didn't lose a sister, I say quietly. You lost the illusion you knew who I was. He nods, eyes glassy. Can we start again? I don't start from scratch, I say, but I do build forward. We sit for a while, talk about things that once never passed between us. Regret, shame, memories neither of us had the language for back then. He tells me about his daughter, how she writes essays about women in history, how she asked if Aunt Elise was famous or just brave. I chuckle. Hopefully both. When I leave, I give him a firm hug, not because we're whole again, but because some walls are better dismantled brick by brick than torn down all at once. That night, I walk the streets of D.C. with the cool air brushing my cheeks. I stop by the war memorials, place a hand on a stone nameplate I recognize. I whisper a promise to keep speaking for the ones who didn't come back, for the ones who came back invisible. Weeks later, I'm asked to be the keynote speaker at a leadership summit for underrepresented voices in public service. Not just military, teachers, nurses, immigrants, young girls. I stand before the crowd, all eyes locked on me. I used to think being a burden meant I had to carry shame, I say. Now I know. I was always carrying something heavier. Purpose. They rise to their feet when I finish. One by one. It's not just applause, it's an acknowledgement that my story isn't about war, it's about reclamation. Later, a young woman with burns on her hands and a fierce look in her eyes stops me in the hallway. They called me broken, she says, until I watched you speak last year. Now I walk into every room knowing I'm a damn cathedral. I take her hands in mine. That's right. They don't have to like the way we rise, but they'll never forget it. She nods, tears forming. I head home that evening with a quiet heart. Back in my apartment, I make tea, sit on the couch, and pull out a single photograph from a drawer. It's me, maybe 19, in full fatigues, arms crossed, face still too young to know what's coming. I slide it into a frame, place it on my bookshelf, between the medals and the dog tags I keep in a velvet pouch. Not for others. For me. To remember the girl who walked out of the basement not knowing where she was going, only that she wouldn't come back the same. To honor the soldier who didn't wait to be chosen. To love the woman I've become, not because I was applauded, but because I was forged. The metal is heavier than it looks. I hold it sometimes, late at night, when the city sleeps, and the world forgets what it means to carry names on your back. The ribbon's frayed a little where it brushes against skin. I think that's fitting. Every honor comes with wear. People always ask the same question, eventually. Do you forgive them? I don't answer right away. Sometimes I laugh. Sometimes I change the subject. But tonight, I think I finally know what to say. I don't forgive them for forgetting me. I don't forgive them for calling me a burden. I forgive myself for believing them. Because that's the truth no one warns you about. The real scar isn't the shrapnel in your leg, or the tendon that never healed quite right. It's the quiet voice in your head that starts to agree with their judgment. That's the one that takes years to root out. And I did. I rooted it out. I bled for it. And now, I get to live without it. I spend most of my time now working with young women. Veterans, students, mothers fleeing shelters, daughters of addiction and silence. Some of them still whisper when they speak, like they're apologizing for taking up air. Others come in loud and angry, all thorns and fire, but I know that armor too well. I don't tell them to be strong. I show them what it looks like. Strength isn't noise. It's choosing not to disappear when the world hands you every reason to vanish. Last week, I gave a talk at a juvenile detention center. A girl, 16, same age I was when the word burden became mine, asked, "How do you know you're not worthless when everyone treats you like you are?" I looked her in the eyes and said, "Because your value isn't up for a vote. Their voices get loud, but your truth doesn't need permission." She didn't cry, but her shoulders dropped, just a little. And that's how I knew something landed. When I return home that night, I find a letter in my mailbox. Handwritten. From my father. The handwriting is shaky. Older than I remember. It smells faintly of aftershave and wood polish. Elise. I don't know how to start this, except to say I watched you at the ceremony. I saw the general kneel. I heard the First Lady say your name, and I realized I never truly saw you. Not even once. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed you to know. I see you now, and I am sorry. Dad, I sit with it for a long time. Not angry, not weeping, just still. It doesn't fix the past. It doesn't erase the silence. But maybe it's a seed, and I get to choose whether it grows. I place it next to the photograph of me at 19. Then I light a candle. Not for him. For me. For the girl who once needed this letter like breath. And for the woman who no longer does. The next morning, I get up early and walk to the hill near my apartment. It's quiet. The sun hasn't quite broken through the clouds. I sip coffee from a tin mug and listen to the wind moving through the leaves like distant footsteps. A young boy jogs by with his dog waving at me. A couple passes hand in hand. Life goes on. And I am still here. No longer surviving. Living. I whisper to the air like it's carrying my voice somewhere sacred. I was never the burden. I was the ground they all stood on. And now they know it. The family. The generals. The nation. But most of all, I know it. And knowing it, that's the metal that matters most.